Ethiopia is a country famous for being the home of the coffee plant. However, Ethiopians themselves didn't start drinking it until very recently. For countless decades, this country was among the world's poorest. But if you followed VisualPolitik for a while, you already know that Ethiopia was blessed with one of the greatest miracles of the time. In recent decades, Ethiopia has grown at a rate of 10% year after year. In this country, fashion brands like Calvin Klein and H&M have opened large textile workshops, and Chinese factories are being built along the outskirts of Addis Ababa at a startling pace. But the Chinese are not the only ones interested in making money in Ethiopia. At the beginning of 2019, Hyundai opens their first assembly plant here. In other words, more and more Ethiopians are stepping out of poverty every day. But hold on for just a second, because this isn't actually the Ethiopian miracle. You see, until the year 2018, the economy was doing well, but the political system, it kinda sucked. They had an authoritarian system just like that of the Chinese Communist Party. One party, there was censorship, and there was never-ending harassment and abuse of ethnic minorities. But one day, against all odds, something shocking happens, and a lot changed thanks to the man that you see on screen right now. This man is Abiy Ahmed Ali, the brand new Ethiopian Prime Minister. And I say against all odds because Abiy Ahmed Ali was the last person you would imagine to be a reformist. He was an army general and a member of the establishment party, the Ethiopian People's Liberation Front. However, as soon as this man took a step into office as Prime Minister, he started rocking the boat. From one day to the next, he abolished most of the censorship laws, banned the harassment of minority groups by the army, and announced free elections by 2020. Add to this the peace with neighboring Eritrea he negotiated, and a liberalization agenda that sounds like heaven to international investors, and, well, yes, it might be the case that he gets a chance to receive a Nobel Peace Prize. He definitely already deserves it much more than many others who've received it. But hold on a minute, because believe it or not, in Ethiopia, not everything is sunshine and rainbows. Yes, on paper, the intentions of this politician couldn't sound better. If he achieves everything he wants, he would become an Ethiopian national hero for generations to come and a symbol of democracy in Africa. But as we always say here on VisualPolitik, things are a bit more complicated than they seem.
Ethiopia's Amhara state chief killed amid regional coup attempt.
Yep, you heard that right. Democratic transitions are never easy, especially considering that Ethiopia already has a political elite enjoying the privileges of the establishment and more than 13 different distinct and divided ethnicities. We are talking about an enormous country of more than 100 million people speaking more than 13 languages. This is a test to Abiy Ahmed's real intentions. With so much opposition and so much ethnic tension and conflict, it's very tempting to go back to the good old days of dictatorship. At the end of the day, tyrants can deal with such disorder much more easily. So, to what extent is Abiy Ahmed really willing to respect human rights? Can Ethiopia become an actual democracy, or maybe it's too hard to just resist the temptation of becoming an authoritarian dictatorship again? Well, today we are going to answer all of these questions, but before we do, let's take a look back at the history.
Country of three revolutions.
Many of you might associate Ethiopia with Rastafarians. As you know, Bob Marley and his acolytes practiced a religion that revered Haile Selassie, the Ethiopian emperor. Not to offend the Rastafarians, but Emperor Selassie was an absolute monarch that ruled Ethiopia with an iron fist. And as it tends to be with absolutist leaders, he didn't die in bed. In the year 1975, a guerrilla organization known as the Derg seized power and slew him at the ripe old age of 83 after 35 years of rule. This was the first Ethiopian revolution. Revolutions rarely go as well as planned, though, but even more rarely do they go as horrible as they did in Ethiopia. The Derg was a Marxist-Leninist group that governed the country during the 1980s. In this time, they collectivized the lands, nationalized all the companies, and began what would become known as the Gay Shabir, or the Ethiopian Red Terror, which resulted in 500,000 dead political dissidents. Horrible policies mixed with low rainfall resulted in one of the worst famines in Ethiopian history. Subsequently, another uprising occurred in 1991 after a bloody civil war. The Ethiopian People's Liberation Front took power. This was the Second Ethiopian Revolution. Unfortunately, this revolution wasn't very liberal either. They went from a purer communism to a milder one with Chinese characteristics, hence the good relationship between these two countries and the country's economic growth. But pay attention, because now Eric is going to tell us the really interesting part of the story.
You see, Ethiopia has more than 100 million citizens and over 13 tribes. These tribes are not always very friendly with one another, and that's why the constitution is so special. To start with, Ethiopia is the only country on Earth, besides Liechtenstein, where the right to secession is part of the constitution. This means that, theoretically, each of these 9 regions you see on the map could have a referendum and become independent.
Each of these ethnicities has their own political party. Most of these political parties are part of this grand coalition called the Ethiopian People's Liberation Front. All these parties have seats in the parliament. All of this means that Ethiopian politics are not a debate between right and left wing or conservative versus liberal. Instead, it's a debate amongst squabbling tribes. And you might wonder, does this system work? Can Ethiopians put aside their differences and coexist in peace and harmony? And the answer? Well, no. First of all, this right to secession is just a theory. Each time a region wanted to secede, they had to face the army, and as you can imagine, not all tribes are equal. From those 13 ethnic groups, only 3 call the shot: the Oromo, the Amhara, and the Tigrayans. The rest are suffering constant human rights violations. These include, but are not limited to, forced displacements, land confiscations, and of course, the occasional slaughter. For example, the Somalians living in Ethiopia have been suffering never-ending abuses by paramilitary groups. And of course, both the government and the military deny such things. If that wasn't enough, Ethiopia was in a seemingly endless war with Eritrea, a region that's succeeded in secession only through force. So yes, the economy was doing well, but the political situation, it could hardly be worse. This all set the stage for the Third Ethiopian Revolution. So let's have a look at that, shall we?
The Ethiopian rock star.
I'm gonna say it again. Remember this name because he might one day win a Nobel Peace Prize. Abiy Ahmed Ali. Until 2018, he was what we call an apparatchik. This is a party man, an army general that belonged to an Oromo tribe. As we said before, these are one of the ruling ethnic groups. Nevertheless, as soon as he started his administration, he unleashed one of the most ambitious reformist agendas in history. In 1 year, he signed a peace treaty with Eritrea, abolished censorship, and has blocked abuses by the military. Aren't impressed yet? Well, just wait, because we haven't finished. He has already announced free elections, managed to get a woman as president, and is passing the biggest liberalizations ever seen in Ethiopia.
Ethiopia to install 4G network ahead of telecoms liberalization.
With all of this, it's easy to understand why he has become the new African rock star. In fact, we can already talk about Abiy mania. And believe me, everything I say here is not hyperbole at all. Some religious groups already claim that he is the Messiah, a feat that he shares with the late Haile Selassie. In Eritrea, the former die-hard enemy of Ethiopia, there are already mothers naming their children after him. Not to mention, the Ethiopian media is having a big-time renaissance.
Satire is flourishing in Ethiopia.
Brand new newspapers, brand new TV shows, and exiled journalists are coming back to the country. The pictures you see now are part of a comedy sketch that you can find on YouTube. For the first time in Ethiopian history, people can make fun of politicians, including the Prime Minister. And it seems that next year, an Ethiopian broadcaster will start a late-night show similar to The Daily Show. All of this is pretty normal in a country like America or the UK, but it is a giant step here. But okay, I know what you're going to say now. It's easy to allow free press when the media loves you, but what happens when you have die-hard critics? Well, let's cover that now.
Freedom has its risks.
2019 surprised Ethiopians with a terrible drought that brought many regions to the brink of starvation. Unemployment is near 20% and many young people are in a desperate situation. If that wasn't enough, the old guard is far from happy with this third revolution. See what happened in June 2019.
Ethiopian army chief killed by bodyguard and regional leader dead in coup attempt. The Amhara state president, Ambachu Mekonnen, and his advisor were shot dead, and the state's attorney general was wounded in Amhara's capital.
Basically, a man from the military who belonged to the Amhara tribe decided to kill the governor of his region. According to him, Abiy Ahmed was ending all the privileges that his tribe used to enjoy, so he organized a coup d'etat to separate from the rest of the country. As you can imagine, the central government did not wait to retaliate.
Ethiopia security forces kill alleged coup leader.
But we're not talking about a military answer only. For almost 2 days, the central government cut access to the internet. And just like that, for the next 48 hours, Ethiopians nationwide didn't have any internet access. This way, the citizenry couldn't visit any media or any site with a critical opinion of the government. So yeah, I can probably tell what you're thinking. Freedom of speech didn't last long at all. But if you thought this was the only problem Abiy had, well, you better think again.
Ethiopia referendum. Dozens killed in Sidama clashes.
With so much freedom, the Sidama tribe, one of those groups that have always been marginalized by the powers that be, decided to call for an independence referendum. They didn't want to become an independent country, but rather they wanted to have their own autonomous region within Ethiopia, like some larger ethnic groups have. This is what happens when you give freedom to the people. People want to use that freedom, and at this moment, the guys from the Ethiopian government said essentially, well, these guys are a massive pain in the ass. Okay, so you Sidama guys, do what you want. You want a referendum? Fine. But look, can you wait 5 months? Just hold on 5 months. And then the Sidama tribe said, oh yeah, just 5 months. You wait just 5 months? I mean, you just sound like the previous government guys. You talk about democracy, you talk about freedom and all of that sweet stuff, but then you go f***ing around with referendums. You can take your 5 months waiting time and you can stick it up your ass. And that is how violent protests ending with over 30 deaths happen. So let me guess what you're thinking. This Abiy Ahmed guy, it's pretty disappointing. But well, sometimes history can be really beautiful.
Ethiopia to hold autonomy referendum for ethnic Sidama in November.
Yes, after much hesitation, Abiy Ahmed is really willing to allow that referendum. Coupled with the internet already working again, it seems that freedom of speech is alive in Ethiopia. For example, while we were preparing this video, we found some English-speaking Ethiopian newspapers, and we could find news pieces like this one.
Sidama unrest toll rises to 34.
I know this is really bad news. This is the kind of news that doesn't paint a nice portrait of the government. But that's precisely it. The fact that an Ethiopian newspaper can now say bad things about the government is an amazing thing. Good luck finding something similar in China. For a better understanding, Deutsche Welle, which is a radio program similar to the BBC but in Germany, has already started broadcasting in Amharic language. And look at the kind of talk shows that they already are hosting.
Discussion. Country risk. They began to hear warnings that Ethiopia was endangered as a country.
Unfortunately, we don't really know what they are discussing in this talk show because we couldn't find any Ethiopian who could help us. So far, Abiy is keeping his promise of free elections by 2020. Of course, this will not be an easy thing. First of all, Ethiopia will have to perform a new census, which is extremely hard to do. Remember that despite the growth, this is still a very poor country, and the government has a lot of challenges ahead of it, starting with the huge unemployment rate. So the question goes to you, should Ethiopia be able to hold these elections by 2020? Will Abiy fall to the temptations of the fruits of authoritarianism? Also, is Ethiopia ready for democracy? Well, please leave your answer in the comment section below. Also, do visit our friends from reconsidermedia.com. They provided the vocals in this episode that were not mine. Also, don't forget we publish brand new videos every week, so subscribe to VisualPolitik, hit that bell button so you won't miss a post. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.
And if you want to learn more about politics and hear even more of my lovely voice, you can join us at Reconsider Media. We have a podcast at reconsidermedia.com/podcast. See you there.